In London, a mysterious man showed up at the hospital, where Owen Shaw, the notorious criminal, had just been pushed out of a plane by Dominic's crew in the previous part. Now, he's undergoing treatment, his body wrapped in bandages due to severe burns from the plane explosion. Turns out, Owen hasn't passed away yet, and that stranger is his older brother. In the tense atmosphere of the hospital room, the bald guy visits his brother with a cold stare and a promise to get revenge at any cost. Turns out, the bald guy is a notorious assassin in the underworld. Wherever he goes, the police are taken down. As he steps out of the elevator, the bald guy puts a grenade into the hand of a special forces soldier, and right as he leaves the hospital, the grenade explodes, blowing the place to bits as the first declaration of war against Dominic's crew. This short but meaningful appearance opened up a whole new chapter, full of vengeance and more dangerous than ever. But at this moment, Dominic's crew has no idea that a great danger from the underworld is targeting them. Meanwhile, Dominic is out for a drive with Letty. To help her regain her memory, he takes her to places they had been before, hoping Letty might remember something, but she just keeps a blank face. Maybe the trauma from the previous accident was too severe, making Letty forget everything about them. So, Dominic decides to take his girlfriend back to their old places, the racetrack that once made her famous. He said it was the two of them who created this track, which made Letty extremely excited. Turns out, her past was more glorious than she thought. This place was full of street racers and gorgeous girls. This time, the race was between Letty and a bald guy. Dominic believed that, even without her memory, Letty's skills hadn't disappeared. After giving her a few words of advice, the two racers got ready at the start line. Guided by a sizzling hot flag girl, Letty focused intensely, shifted gears and accelerated like a pro. In the end, Letty crossed the finish line to the cheers of the crowd, and Dominic's face was full of pride, like, that's my girl. Letty stepped out, overwhelmed by everyone's praise. Turns out, in the world of speed, she was known as the ghost of the track. Everything happened so fast that she was a bit overwhelmed by all the attention. She remembered a bit about the horrific accident she had gone through. Panicked, she punched a man in the face. No one understood why Letty acted that way, but Dominic explained that she had gone through a rough time and hoped everyone would understand his girlfriend. After that, Letty jumped in her car and drove away. After a while, she drove to a cemetery and stopped in front of her own grave. Turns out, everyone thought she had passed away in the previous mission and held a funeral for her. At that moment, Dominic also arrived. He was about to smash the empty grave with a hammer, but Letty stopped him. She said that her old self had passed away. Now, she wanted a new life, no longer tied to the past. She said she needed to be alone to search for what she had lost. Then, Letty left Dominic behind and drove away. Unlike the young couple who were upset with each other, Brian and Mia were immersed in happiness. Mia found out she was pregnant with Brian's child again, and Brian was now busy with his small family, taking his kid to school every day. At that moment, feeling lonely, Dominic came to visit his sister's family to lighten up. He was curious about the package in front of Brian's house. He heard it came from Tokyo, probably sent by Han, an old teammate sending something for the kid. Dominic was really happy for their little family, about to welcome another member. But Mia decided not to tell her husband about the pregnancy yet. Her face looked conflicted because Mia knew deep down this peaceful life wasn't really what Brian truly wanted. She knew her husband needed to fight, needed to smell the gunpowder. Suddenly, Dominic received a phone call. Turns out, the caller was the bald guy. After the bald guy's warning, Dominic knew the box had to be a bomb. Before he could finish talking, a loud explosion rang out. Dominic quickly shielded Mia in time. Brian also managed to close the car door. The house burst into flames. Thick black smoke rose straight into the sky. Dust filled the surroundings. As soon as she came to her senses, Mia ran to her husband and son. Luckily, everyone was still safe, but the house had turned into ruins. Dominic and Brian knew this situation was getting pretty serious. Indeed, Brian's family wasn't the only one the bald guy was taking revenge on. Before that, the bald guy had gone to Hobbs's office. In Los Angeles, Hobbs was still working hard, unaware that a looming danger was coming. Elena came to see Hobbs to chat for a bit. Then she said goodbye to head out. Before Elena got in the car to leave, Hobbs chased after her to give her a reference letter for her new job. He knew her abilities deserved to be appreciated at a better place. When Hobbs returned to his office, he noticed a shady figure sitting in his chair using his computer. The bald guy was still busy searching for information on the people involved in Owen's case. His younger brother? Turns out, the bald guy had noticed Hobbs for a while. But the bald guy was very calm, saying, "Wait a sec, let me finish getting the files." Truly a cold-blooded and arrogant assassin. Seeing that, Hobbs threatened that if the bald guy didn't stand up, he'd break the bald guy's arm into 6 pieces and toss him in a pit. Hobbs told him not to be stupid enough to dance with death. At that moment, Hobbs still didn't know how powerful the bald guy was. He just thought this was some regular hacker. But the bald guy said he came to find the team that crippled his brother Owen. But Hobbs wasn't scared at all. He challenged the bald guy and said, "There's one guy standing right here. If you're tough, come at me." Still expressionless, the bald guy pulled out a memory card. Suddenly, the bald guy charged forward and kicked Hobbs backward. But Hobbs wasn't backing down, using his massive build to his advantage. Hobbs punched the bald guy nonstop, knocking him back. The fight was fierce and evenly matched. Neither one backed down, both landing strikes to the other's weak spots, full of provocation. Both were bald and had shaved heads, but their fighting skills were incredible. Hobbs had thunderous punches. While the bald guy was agile and flexible, Hobbs took advantage of an opening and slammed the bald guy down but got a hit to his private part, making Hobbs scream out. The bald guy used the chance to fight back. Seeing that, Hobbs pulled out a weapon hidden under the desk and fired at the opponent. Just then, Elena came back in time after hearing the gunshots. The bald guy jumped and threw a bomb toward both of them. To protect Elena, Hobbs used his hippo-sized body to shield her. The blast was so powerful that the building exploded. The shockwave knocked Hobbs and Elena down. Luckily, they landed on a car below, so their lives were temporarily safe. In the rubble, the bald guy miraculously survived without a scratch. At that moment, the screen was also about to display Han's personal info. A member in Tokyo of the whole crew. He was the next target for the bald guy's revenge. After leaving Han covered in blood, the bald guy called to challenge Dominic's crew and made Brian and Mia's house explode. Dominic received a call from Elena, informing him that Hobbs had also been attacked and was in the hospital. Although nothing was life-threatening, he had a broken collarbone and a fractured leg. Dominic was very worried about his best friend after hearing this. At that moment, Hobbs was lying in the hospital bed with his limbs in casts. Seeing his buddy like that, Dominic couldn't help throwing a few jabs before getting to the point. Suddenly, Hobbs introduced his daughter to Dominic, surprising him. After Elena took the girl out of the room, Hobbs explained that the one behind all of this was Owen's older brother. His name is Deckard. According to FBI files, Deckard is a top-tier assassin, and he's wanted internationally. The bald guy used to be a killer for the British Special Forces. However, that team operated in the shadows, so everyone working for them was a monster, and Deckard was no exception. Everything would have been fine if the British government hadn't thought they could no longer control the team, so they decided to eliminate the unit by sending 20 elite agents to take out Deckard. But even that didn't work on him. Hobbs rarely gets this serious about a wanted target. Dominic asked, "Where do we find him?" Then Hobbs told Dominic to be careful with Deckard. He reminded his buddy that, if you catch the bald guy, don't send him straight to the sky for me. At the same time, to keep his sister's family safe from further danger, Dominic left them with a friend in a secure location. Mia said the security here was even tighter than the FBI or Homeland Security. Dominic said he was going to borrow Mia's husband for a bit and promised to return him safely. He asked his sister to tell Brian that, in 2 days, they would meet up in Los Angeles. As for him, he was heading to Tokyo to say goodbye to Han, his unfortunate friend. Meanwhile, Brian was watching the news, furious about what the bald guy had done to his friends. Mia comforted her husband and said everything would be okay. She said everyone needed him to help take down the bad guy, and Mia believed Brian would succeed and come back safe. He promised that after this mission, he wouldn't get involved in anything dangerous again. On the other side of the globe, Dominic had arrived in Japan to meet Sean, a new racing champion and also a friend of Han. The two talked and mourned their good friend. A while later, Sean gave Dominic a photo of Giselle, Han's girlfriend, and a necklace. They had found them at the scene of Han's accident. In the somber atmosphere of the funeral, Dominic stood before Han's memorial, vowing to avenge his fallen brothers. Finally, he left the photo of Giselle, hoping they could rest in peace together. Suddenly, the team noticed the bald guy had shown up. Dominic got in his car to chase the suspicious vehicle. Even though he was a pro racer with high-speed drift, the bald guy wasn't easy to handle either. Dominic struggled to stay on the bald guy's tail on the highway. Suddenly, the bald guy turned under a bridge, and Dominic quickly followed. 2 cars, one red, one black, faced each other in hostility. Both slammed their brakes, downshift, engines roaring, as if declaring one of us won't make it out alive. Without saying another word, they floored it and crashed into each other. The head-on collision crushed and mangled the front ends of both cars. Luckily, neither of them had passed away. They got out, staring at each other like they were ready to kill. Dominic only had a hammer. How could that beat the bald guy's loaded gun? Suddenly, a hail of bullets rained down on the bald guy. Caught off guard, he fired back. Realizing he couldn't win, the bald guy quickly escaped. An armored vehicle arrived. Stepping out was a man, an FBI agent. Dominic thought he was an enemy and fought back. But the man stepped in and explained he was a friend of Hobbs. He introduced his codename as Nobody. First off, to have a proper talk, Dominic needed to release his soldiers. After a brief conversation, Nobody said he would help Dominic's crew capture Deckard, which meant the bald guy. Nobody invited him to the organization's base and offered him a beer to welcome him. He said the condition for helping catch the bald guy was that Dominic's team had to help him with something. He explained he was after a new tech weapon called God's Eye. A private military organization led by terrorist Jakande had created a computer program containing super data called God's Eye. Reportedly, it was created by a hacker, and it accidentally fell into the hands of the terrorists. The government didn't want such a dangerous weapon in the hands of a brutal man like Jakande, so they sent people to retrieve it. It's known that God's Eye can access anything connected to a network. That means phones, ATMs, satellites, computers anywhere, all at once. If those connected devices have cameras, it will use them to locate anyone in the world. No boundaries, no location limits, not even space or time. Nobody said that with this. Tracking down wanted criminals would be much easier. No matter where they try to hide, The bald guy is no exception either. So, helping him also meant helping themselves find where the bald guy is hiding. Under the persuasion of this cunning old man, Dominic agreed, but only if he could carry out the mission with his team. Of course, the guy already knew what Dominic would say, so he had already gathered Dominic's crew in advance. They started planning to rescue the hacker Ramsey, because that's the only way to get God's eye, since Ramsey was the one who created the program. After learning that Ramsey was being escorted by Jacandi's elite troops, nobody said they had to be extremely careful to keep the hacker safe. Currently, Ramsey was being held in the Caucasus Mountains, a place with treacherous terrain surrounded by sharp rocky cliffs. There was only one way in. At this point, Dominic came up with a bold idea to get inside. Drop the cars into the canyon by parachute. But first, they had to armor all the vehicles, because this mission was dangerous and couldn't rely on just speed anymore. The whole crew sat inside their cars, waiting for position to jump. However, Roman was scared of heights and decided to stay back. Everyone laughed at the coward, not afraid of guns but terrified of some silly heights. Once the coordinates were set, the plane door opened to drop the target. Dominic volunteered to go first. Brian, Tej, and Letty quickly followed. Only Roman was left behind, struggling to jump down. Before he could finish rambling, Tej triggered Roman's car parachute, dragging Roman down with everyone, whether he liked it or not. As they neared the ground, the crew deployed their parachutes to land. Dominic successfully landed first, followed by his 3 teammates. The team did a head count and realized Roman still hadn't landed. At that moment, he was still floating in the air. So the other 4 had to go after the terrorist convoy first. To rescue the hacker Ramsey, through satellite comms, nobody said failure was not an option for this mission. Because if they did, the terrorists would reach the drop point and extract every bit of intel from Ramsey. Their chance to catch the bald guy would vanish. Soon, the whole team was tailing Jacandi's convoy. Right away, the enemy driver noticed Dominic's crew closing in, so he used the radio to alert the rest. Snipers were quickly deployed to greet them and open fire on the 4 cars. Even with bulletproof glass, they had to hug the roadside, because the firepower was massive from those heavy guns. Dominic ordered Tej to bring the armored car up to shield them. The 3 quickly lined up into a straight formation to block the bullets. All 3 accelerated and pushed the armored car toward the enemies. The assault vehicle easily rammed through 2 enemy escort cars. Then they closed in on the big armored truck carrying Ramsey. Brian pulled out his gun and shot the side mirror. Inside, the terrorists activated guns mounted all around the truck and fired to both sides. Brian and Tej had to swerve to the edge of the road to dodge the bullets. Even Tej's armored car couldn't hold up, because they were using cannons, not just regular machine guns. Letty and Dominic arrived in time and fired hooks that pierced the enemy vehicle. Brian triggered explosives on the hooks, blowing the truck apart. A section of the vehicle flew off and exploded one of the terrorist ATVs. Brian then smashed the window and jumped out. With Tej's help, he managed to get close to the armored truck and successfully rescued Ramsey. She was pretty shaken up but could tell Brian meant no harm. Ramsey followed Brian out and made a run for it. Suddenly, on the map, nobody spotted a strange vehicle closing in on Dominic's crew. Turns out, the bald guy had been tailing them all along. His car darted out and swerved into Dominic's, teasing him, putting Ramsey, who was hanging at the front of the car, in danger. Unfortunately, Brian got ambushed from behind by one of the remaining enemies. Dominic pulled Ramsey into the car and veered off into the woods. Meanwhile, Letty followed closely behind, waiting for a chance to rescue Brian. The 2 cars chased each other through the forest, neither willing to back down. With a cliff up ahead, both turned their wheels and pulled off a beautiful drift. On this end, Letty and Tej were still right behind. Brian was going all out fighting the assassin in the car. He slammed the guy's head into the controls and shot up the other enemy vehicle. In the chaos, the armored vehicle's driver accidentally took a bullet. The truck went out of control and risked falling off a cliff. The assassin dragged Brian inside and locked him in, then jumped out. With death hanging by a thread, Brian dangled over a deadly drop. The truck kept sliding, and Brian fought to reach the rear. Luckily, Letty arrived in time and helped Brian survive. On the other side, Dominic wasn't doing any better. Right after shaking off the bald guy, he was surrounded by Jacandi's hit squad. Under immense pressure, Dominic didn't flinch. Jacandi's men aimed their weapons at him and Ramsey. The terrorists demanded Ramsey be handed over, and they'd spare Dominic and his crew. Even the seasoned nobody behind the screen had no hope left. He could only pray for a miracle to save their team. Suddenly, Dominic told Ramsey to put on a helmet. He hit the gas, spinning the car and kicking up a cloud of dust to block enemy sight. Meanwhile, the bald guy couldn't get a clear aim from his sniping spot. Counting to 3, Dominic drove straight off the cliff. The car crashed and flipped several times before hitting the ground. Fortunately, they survived. Just in time, Brian's team arrived to help. When Ramsey woke up, she said she had given God's eye to a friend in Dubai for safekeeping, but Dominic thought she was lying. Ramsey said she trusted them. She said by the way they fought, she could tell they were cops or soldiers or something. Basically, better people than the killers that Jacandi had sent after her. Dominic and the whole crew left to prep for a flight to the Middle East. Not long after, they arrived in the most luxurious city on earth, Dubai, where the world's wealthiest gather. Ramsey took the crew to meet her friend to retrieve God's eye. Turns out, the guy had sold what she entrusted to him, to some Jordanian prince a long time ago. That guy lives in a skyscraper, and breaking in is impossible. He said the prince would host a party tomorrow to show off his collection of supercars. They could take advantage of the event. The team disguised themselves as billionaires to blend into the party. Tage planned the operation for the crew because God's Eye was installed on the prince's supercar's chip, so the whole team had to work together perfectly to retrieve it safely. Brian said the security cameras focused on the south side, indicating that's where the car vault is located. Letty's mission was to sneak into the prince's bedroom to disable the security monitoring system. At that moment, a female agent noticed Letty's suspicious behavior. She easily knocked out the guard and slipped inside. Following Tej's guidance, she cut the power wires. Outside the lobby, Roman distracted the guards by drawing attention at the party, giving Dominic and Brian a chance to sneak in. With Ramsey's help, the vault door was quickly opened. The two worked together to track down God's Eye hidden in the car. Letty finished her task and was trying to slip out, but was suddenly surrounded by the female agent and the prince's guards. The building's alarm system was triggered immediately, catching Tej off guard. The situation grew critical as the whole team ran into problems. All exits had been locked down. Meanwhile, Letty and the female agent were throwing punches like men. No hair pulling or slapping anymore. They brawled and fell into the middle of the party, startling all the guests. Over here, Dominic decided to steal the whole car. Instead of wasting time scanning for the device, right then, the bald guy appeared out of nowhere, firing shots into the air to scare the guests into a panic. Dominic came face to face with the bald guy for the third time. The bald guy opened fire at Brian and Dominic nonstop. Luckily, the car was bulletproof, so they remained unharmed. With no other choice, Dominic drove the car straight through the glass building, and fortunately, landed safely in the tower across the way. But they couldn't stop the car because it was designed without brakes. Once again, the car crashed through a third building. Just as Brian grabbed God's Eye, the two jumped out of the car just before it crashed to the ground. They successfully recovered the device and returned to meet nobody. After getting what he needed, he handed over his entire special ops team to Dominic to use as he pleased. When Ramsey activated God's Eye, it tracked every target like a predator. They discovered all the information and location of the bald guy. Once they had what they needed, the team and the special ops forces surrounded his hideout. When they stormed in, the bald guy calmly continued his dinner, as if he didn't care about these uninvited guests. He mocked them for only sending a few men to take him down. Suddenly, he placed a grenade on the table. Before anyone could react, a massive explosion occurred. It turned out they had walked into a trap set by the bald guy. Turns out terrorist Jakandi had teamed up with the bald guy to ambush them. A fierce gunfight broke out. Unfortunately, God's Eye once again fell into Jakandi's hands. Seeing things go south, Dominic and the team retreated for the time being. Unfortunately, nobody was badly injured. Now, they needed a more thorough plan to face those two deadly threats. At that moment, nobody asked Roman to leave him behind so he wouldn't be a burden. The team regrouped, but Roman said they were just racers who could throw punches. How could they stand against mercenaries armed to the teeth? Knowing the odds were slim, Brian called Mia to give himself some motivation. She revealed she was pregnant and hoped Brian would come home safe. Deep down, they all knew this could be a one-way trip. To prepare, Dominic decided to unleash the beast and didn't forget to build some weapons. Meanwhile, Jakandi used God's Eye to locate Dominic and the crew. Below, the bald guy was ordered to eliminate them all. Ramsey needed to be within at least 3 kilometers from the device to hack God's Eye and shut it down. Unfortunately, the terrorists discovered the plan and decided to eliminate her. The team split up to confuse the enemy. From the helicopter, Jakandi ordered a missile strike on Ramsey's car because she had successfully hacked into God's Eye to escape the missile's targeting system. Brian drove behind a tanker truck to block the shot. Meanwhile, the bald guy and Dominic were glaring daggers at each other, one seeking revenge for his brother, the other for his crew. Both chased each other fiercely down the road. On Brian's end, to protect Ramsey, he called the crew and managed to transfer Ramsey to their car while he distracted the missile away from her. Just before it blew up his car, Brian jumped out in time and saved himself from death. Jakandi failed to kill Ramsey, but didn't give up. He found out she was hacking God's Eye from a high-rise satellite, so he ordered it to be blown up, rendering her hacking device useless. Immediately, Ramsey requested they drive to another nearby building with satellite access, so she could continue disabling the system. The explosion alerted Hobbs that his team was in danger. He tore off his cast and drove out to help his brothers. At the same time, Dominic ditched the guns and grabbed some wrenches to fight the bald guy head-on. 2 bald men going at it with no mercy. At first, Dominic seemed to be losing, but soon landed a punch that knocked the bald guy on his back. They were fighting hard on the rooftop when Jakandi's helicopter arrived. He aimed a missile at both of them. At this point, there was no friendship between terrorist and assassin anymore. The explosion created a crack that sent the bald guy falling into a hole. Meanwhile, Ramsey was still being driven to safety, but couldn't escape a heat-seeking missile. Thankfully, Letty was en route to back them up. Just before their car exploded again, the 3 managed to escape just in time. Jakandi's hacker realized they had been tricked because God's Eye showed Ramsey had switched cars. Just then, Hobbs arrived in time and rammed the missile launcher, attacking Letty and Ramsey. Then he sped to Dominic's location. Before Jakandi's chopper could fire on his friend, Hobbs fired a heavy weapon at the chopper. keeping Dominic safe from even a scratch. Chakandi didn't give up. He changed targets and fired repeatedly at Letty's car. Seeing the danger, Dominic got in his car to distract Chakandi's helicopter. Then he drove straight toward it, aiming to crash into it. But unfortunately for him, it dodged in time. But Dominic's real plan was to plant a bag of grenades on the chopper. Hobbs saw it and, without hesitation, shot the bag, blowing up the helicopter. The team saw Dominic fall from the sky and rushed to try and save him, but he was unconscious, barely breathing. Everyone tried CPR and chest compressions, but Dom didn't wake up. Letty desperately pushed everyone aside. She had remembered all her beautiful memories with Dom, and with sheer willpower, she tried to spark his fighting spirit and prayed he'd wake up. A miracle happened. Dominic opened his eyes. In the end, the bald guy didn't die either, and was locked up in a CIA black site. Hobbs made sure to mock the bald guy before walking out. Then, the team took a beach vacation to unwind after all they'd been through. They watched Brian's family happily playing in the sand. A while later, Dominic stood up and walked away. Letty said, "Aren't you going to say goodbye to Brian?" He said there would never be a goodbye between them. The movie's final scene was a conversation between Dominic and Brian, recalling the years they'd spent together. In reality, the actor who played Brian passed away during filming. The final scene was a tribute to the late actor, showing Dominic and Brian driving off in separate directions, but never saying goodbye. It symbolized that they were simply on different paths, living different lives now, and at the end of the road, they'd meet again someday. Just like how Paul, the late actor, still lives on in the hearts of his co-workers and fans. The film ended with deep emotion. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel.